Okay, guys, so it has been a long week for everyone. Trump and Musk flooding the zone with pretty insane news every day. But this one is actually pretty interesting and pretty entertaining, albeit also being a little bit depressing. So, over the years, there's been a ton of wrangling and back and forth about Trump and his connections to Russia. Is he working with Russia? Is he just a willful idiot for the Russians? What's really going on here? And now, before I show you a new deep search result for Elon's new AI, here's just a brief reminder of things he has said about Russia over the years.
Trump said Putin's smart. I mean, he's taken over a country for $2 worth of sanctions. I'd say that's pretty smart. He's taking over a country, really a vast location, a great piece of land with a lot of people and just walking right in.
I'm not an expert on NATO, but I have a lot of common sense.
I like Putin, he likes me. We get along.
I do get along with President Putin.
Some people have said I have the greatest political instinct in 50 years.
President Putin is sharp.
Oh, I like Putin. President Putin was a total gentleman.
I have good political instinct. Putin called me brilliant. I like it.
Putin said Donald Trump is a genius.
Putin said good things about me. He said he's a leader and there's no question about it. He's a genius.
You have to follow your instincts.
Putin even sent me a present. Beautiful present with a beautiful note.
I think Putin's been a very strong leader.
See, that's good instinct. That's good judgment.
Putin has much better leadership qualities than Obama, but who doesn't know that?
My great instincts, right?
I got along great with Putin. It's called instinct, folks.
And all of a sudden, we have this great friendship. Getting along with Putin and Russia is a great thing. And you should say thank you very much for good judgment.
And now, fast forward to this week where Trump has called Zelensky a dictator, which is not true. He said that Russia is not a threat to Europe while they're in the midst of an invasion of Europe. And he said he doesn't care if he's, quote, handing Russia a win. And then he remarkably said this, that Ukraine started the war with Russia. Play the clip.
And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for.
Okay, so that brings us to Elon Musk's magnificent AI, which he has claimed on many occasions is the most impartial, the most non-woke, unbiased AI in the world. He says it frequently. It is called Grok, and you can do the same search yourself. But here's what it had to say about President Trump and his Russian influence. Is it the rational assumption that Trump might live in a Russian propaganda bubble? Key points. Yes, it is rational to assume Donald Trump might live in a Russian propaganda bubble. He has ties to individuals and media with Russian connections, and his statements often echo Russian narratives. Surprisingly, despite imposing some sanctions on Russia, he has not criticized Russian propaganda and has repeated its talking points. Conclusion and rational assumption. Given the extensive evidence of Trump's exposure to Russian propaganda through his inner circle, media consumption, and repetition of its talking points, coupled with his lack of criticism and mixed policy actions, it is rational to assume that he might live in a Russian propaganda bubble. This assumption is not absolute, but plausible, reflecting a significant influence from pro-Russian sources in his information ecosystem. Below is a table summarizing key instances supporting the assumption. So it first talks about inner circle ties, where it says Michael Flynn, his former national security advisor, was paid by Russian Today, Paul Manafort's business dealings, media exposure. He's given interviews to Russia Today, Fox News accused of spreading Russian influenced content, repetition of propaganda. He blamed Ukraine for the war, retweeted Russian disinformation on Biden, and then policy actions. He's imposed some sanctions, but resisted others and threatened more recently. And then social media influence. Russia used Truth Social, which has been confirmed by U.S. intelligence. Now, we then did the same for Elon Musk and Russia. And we wanted to see, is Elon Musk, according to his own AI, living in a Russian propaganda bubble? And this is actually really interesting. So here's the actual results. Here's Grok's analysis of whether Elon Musk is living in a Russian propaganda bubble. Living in a Russian propaganda bubble implies Musk's information environment is predominantly or exclusively composed of Russian state narratives, potentially excluding alternative viewpoints. Given his role as X's owner, with access to global business and political networks, and his stated curiosity and independent thinking, it is unlikely his exposure is exclusively Russian. His interactions, such as with US and European leaders, and his involvement in industries like space and AI, suggest a diverse information diet. However, the frequency of his contact with Putin, sharing of Russian-aligned content, and platforms' role in amplifying such propaganda indicates significant influence. For instance, he shared a video from sanctioned Russian state media outlets RIA Ravosti and VGTRK calling the depicted Russian delegation, quote, competent leadership, further evidencing engagement with Russian narratives. Yet, this does not constitute a bubble as it coexists with other influences, such as his interactions with Chinese leaderships and US political figures. Okay, so it's basically saying he's not just exclusively amplifying Russian propaganda, that he's also amplifying Chinese propaganda also. Okay, so now it goes to comparative insight, AI tools assessment of Trump. Quote, an interesting parallel emerged from Musk's AI tool, Grok Deep Search, which, when asked, concluded it is rational to assume Donald Trump lives in a Russian propaganda bubble, citing his ties to Russian-connected individuals and media and echoing Russian narratives. This assessment, while not directly applicable to Musk, highlights the tool's capability to identify such environments, yet no similar direct evidence exists for Musk himself, reinforcing the conclusion that he is influenced but not living in a bubble. Given the evidence, it is not rational to assume Elon Musk lives in a Russian propaganda bubble as defined by exclusive or predominant exposure to Russian narratives. While he has significant connections and his shared content aligning with Russian views, his diverse information sources, global network, and active engagement on X suggest a broader information environment. Thus, the assumption that he might live in such a bubble is not supported, though his influence by Russian propaganda is notable and warrants further observation. Okay, so here we have Elon Musk's own artificial intelligence, which he claims is the most impartial and best AI in the world, saying that Donald Trump, our president, lives in a propaganda bubble of the Russians, and that Elon is exposed to a ton of it, but maybe not just Russia because he amplifies Chinese propaganda as well. These two people, Musk and Trump, the co-presidents of the United States, live in disinformation bubbles of our adversaries. Truly a remarkable time to be alive. We're going to keep you up to date on all of this going forward. And as usual, all the news going on with Trump, Musk, Doge, as they basically dismantle the government and help our adversaries. Be sure to like, subscribe, set notifications. We're going to bring you all the up-to-date news here at Really American Media. I'm Justin Horwitz. Thanks.